The Kitchen of Leora, a fiercely competitive fine dining restaurant in the heart of London, sounded like a battlefield. The relentless clatter of steel against steel, the roar of open gas flames, and the sharp, unforgiving voice of executive chef Richard echoed off the white tiled walls. "Service! I said I need those scallops on the pass 3 minutes ago. Are you sleeping, David?" Chef Richard's voice cut through the thick, humid air like a serrated knife. Clara, a 32-year-old sous chef with flour dusting her apron and burn marks mapping her forearms, kept her head down. She was stationed at the corner, working on the sauces, a crucial but often overlooked job. Clara was the only woman in the kitchen, a fact Richard never let her forget. "Clara!" Richard barked, marching over to her station. He dipped a pristine silver spoon into her simmering reduction and tasted it, his eyes narrowing. "What is this?" "It's the blackberry and thyme demi-glaze for the duck, chef," Clara replied, keeping her voice steady despite the flutter of anxiety in her chest. "I added a hint of smoked paprika to elevate the earthiness of the thyme." Richard stared at her, his face flushing red. Slowly, deliberately, he grabbed the handle of the saucepan and poured the entire contents down the drain. The thick, dark sauce vanished in a swirl of hot steam. "Chef!" Clara gasped, taking a step forward. "That took 4 hours to reduce." "And it took me 10 seconds to realize it belongs in the garbage," Richard sneered, wiping his hands on a towel. "I did not ask for your elevations, Clara. This is my kitchen. We serve my vision. If you want to play around with spices like a housewife cooking Sunday dinner, do it on your own time. Remake it. Now." Clara swallowed the lump forming in her throat. "Yes, chef." As Richard stormed off to berate the pastry chef, Ben, a young line cook who often worked beside Clara, leaned in. "Don't let him get to you," Ben whispered, keeping his eyes on his cutting board as his knife flew through a pile of chives. "That sauce was incredible. I tasted it while you were prepping. It's better than his original recipe, and he knows it. He's just threatened." "He's not threatened, Ben," Clara said softly, her hands trembling as she reached for a new batch of stock. "He just thinks I don't belong here. He's been trying to break me for 2 years." "So why stay?" Ben asked, wiping his brow. "You have more talent in your pinky finger than half the guys on this line. You could open your own place." Clara let out a bitter, exhausted laugh. "With what money, Ben? Investors don't look at female chefs who get stuck on the sauce station. They look at guys like Richard. I need this resume. I need to prove I can survive the pressure here before anyone will take me seriously." "You already have. You just need the right person to notice." The Friday night rush was a chaotic ballet of fire and shouting, but the real tension began at 8:30 p.m. when the maitre d' burst through the kitchen doors, his face pale. "Chef Richard," the maitre d' called out, rushing to the pass. "Table 4, it's Marcus Vance." A dead silence fell over the kitchen. Even the sizzling pans seemed to quiet down. Marcus Vance was the most notoriously strict culinary critic in Europe, known to have direct ties to the Michelin Guide. A good review from him meant a star. A bad one meant closed doors. "Right," Richard said, clapping his hands loudly, breaking the silence. "Everyone listen up. This is it. Perfection. I want absolute perfection. We are serving him the tasting menu. I will personally plate every single dish." For the next hour, the kitchen operated at a terrifying pace. Clara worked seamlessly, producing flawless sauces, yet Richard never once looked her way. Then came the main course, the ticket printed out with a special note. The maitre d' ran it back. "Chef, Mr. Vance is requesting a deviation from the menu," the maitre d' said nervously. "He says he's tired of traditional French duck. He wants something off-menu. His exact words were, 'a dish that tells a story of the sea, something that reminds me of a stormy coast.' He wants to see the chef's true soul." Richard stared at the ticket, his jaw clenched. A story of the sea? Pretentious nonsense. Fine, we'll do the seared sea bass with the saffron foam. It's safe, it's classic, it's flawless. Ben, get the bass ready. Clara's heart pounded. She looked at Richard. Chef, respectfully, the bass with saffron foam is safe, but it doesn't evoke a storm. It's too delicate. What if we did the pan-seared scallops, but with a smoked kelp broth and a black garlic emulsion? It has depth. It has that ocean spray bitterness. Did I ask for your opinion, Clara? Richard snapped, leaning over the pass. This is a Michelin star on the line, not one of your little experiments. Do not speak to me for the rest of the night. Go to the walk-in fridge. But chef, you can't be serious, Clara argued, her frustration finally bubbling over. I am your sous chef. I deserve to be on this line right now. You are on this line because HR said I needed diversity, Richard roared, the entire kitchen freezing. Now go to the walk-in before I fire you right here. Clara stared at him, tears of humiliation prickling her eyes. She untied her apron, threw it on the counter, and walked away. But she didn't go to the walk-in. She went to the prep kitchen in the back. Her hands were shaking, but a fire burned in her chest. She wasn't going to let this opportunity pass, even if it cost her everything. She pulled out a fresh apron. She grabbed fresh scallops, smoked sea salt, a bundle of dried kelp, and black garlic. Working with a furious, emotional intensity, Clara began to cook. She didn't measure. She moved by instinct, by memory, by the pure emotion of feeling invisible for so long. She created a dark, rich, deeply aromatic kelp broth that smelled exactly like the harsh, beautiful coastline of her childhood. She seared the scallops to a perfect caramelized crust. She dotted the plate with the black garlic emulsion, adding a sharpness that cut through the richness of the sea. Ben walked into the prep kitchen, his eyes widening. Clara, what are you doing? Richard is plating the bass right now. Please, Clara begged, her voice thick with emotion as she carefully placed a sprig of sea fennel on the dish. Take this out. Give it to the waiter for table 4. Please. Ben looked at the dish, then at Clara's desperate, tear-streaked face. He nodded slowly. I've got you. Ben took the plate, slipped through the double doors, and handed it to the waiter just as Richard was yelling for a runner. 2 minutes later, Richard stormed into the prep kitchen, his face purple with rage. What did you do? Richard screamed, grabbing a metal tray and slamming it against the wall. The waiter just told me he took a scallop dish to table 4, a dish I did not approve. Are you insane? Clara stood her ground, her chin held high. I cooked what he asked for. You sabotaged my kitchen, Richard yelled, pointing a shaking finger at her face. You arrogant, stupid girl. You are done. You hear me? You will never work in London again. Get your knives and get out of my restaurant. Clara didn't argue. The adrenaline faded, leaving only a hollow, crushing weight. She packed her knife roll, her tears finally spilling over. It was over. Her career was over. Clara was walking toward the back exit, her coat on, her knife roll slung over her shoulder, when the kitchen doors burst open. It was the maitre d'. Richard, he called out, completely ignoring the tension in the room. Mr. Vance wants to see the chef, now. Richard straightened his jacket, plastering on a fake, confident smile. Of course, he's going to complain about whatever garbage Clara sent out. I'll handle it. Richard strutted into the dining room. Clara lingered by the exit, her heart in her throat, needing to know just how badly she had failed. She pushed the kitchen door slightly to peer into the dining room. Marcus Vance was a tall, imposing man. He looked up as Richard approached the table. Chef Richard, Marcus said, his voice carrying across the quiet room. I asked for a story of the sea. Yes, Mr. Vance, I apologize if the dish was not to your standard. There was a miscommunication in my kitchen. Miscommunication? Marcus interrupted, raising an eyebrow. He pointed to the empty plate in front of him. There wasn't a single drop of broth left. Chef, I have eaten in the best restaurants in the world. I have tasted dishes formulated by geniuses. But this broth, The way the black garlic interacted with the smoked kelp, it wasn't just technical perfection, it was pure emotion. It felt like standing on a cliff in a storm. How did you achieve that specific smoke profile on the kelp? Richard froze, the blood drained from his face. Well, it's a delicate process of indirect smoking. Don't lie to me, Richard, Marcus said softly, his eyes narrowing. I know your food. Your food is precise, it is calculated, it is cold. This dish has a beating heart. You didn't cook this. Silence hung heavy in the restaurant. Before Richard could speak, a voice echoed from the kitchen doors. He didn't. Ben pushed through the doors, looking terrified but resolute. Chef Richard didn't cook that dish, sir. He ordered a sea bass. The scallop dish was cooked by our sous chef, Clara. Marcus looked past Richard and saw Clara standing by the kitchen doors, her coat on, holding her knives. Bring her here, commanded Marcus. Clara slowly walked out into the dining room. She felt completely exposed, standing before the most powerful man in the culinary world. Are you Clara? Marcus asked, looking her up and down. Yes, sir, Clara whispered, her voice trembling. I was just fired for sending that dish to your table. Marcus looked at Richard, who was staring at the floor in humiliation. Then Marcus looked back at Clara. His stern face softened into a warm, genuine smile. Clara, Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. For years, I have searched for a chef who cooks not just for accolades, but from the soul. Your dish brought a tear to my eye tonight. It is a masterpiece. Clara's breath hitched. She covered her mouth, a sob escaping her throat. Marcus stood up and extended his hand to her. If a kitchen like this does not recognize your brilliance, it does not deserve you. When you open your own restaurant, Clara, send me a table reservation, because food like this deserves a star of its own. 6 months later, the morning sun streamed into the pristine, quiet kitchen of Ocean, a new, intimate restaurant in the city. Clara stood at the pass, adjusting the collar of her brand-new, perfectly fitted white chef's jacket. Her name, Executive Chef Clara, was embroidered in gold thread over her heart. Ben walked in, carrying a crate of fresh produce, a massive smile on his face. Morning, chef. You ready for the lunch service? Before Clara could answer, her phone rang. She picked it up. Hello? Am I speaking with Chef Clara? A formal French-accented voice asked on the other end. Yes, this is she. Chef, I am calling on behalf of the Michaelin Guide. We are delighted to inform you. Clara closed her eyes, a single tear of pure joy rolling down her cheek. The struggles, the insults, the tears, they had all led her to this exact moment. She wasn't just surviving in a man's world anymore. She had conquered it. Thank you, Clara whispered, her voice breaking with overwhelming emotion. Thank you so much. She hung up the phone, looked at Ben, and smiled. Prep the kelp broth, Ben, Clara said, her voice ringing with newfound confidence. We have stars to earn.